Hello everyone, Jocks, and welcome back to Wrench Reads, Trilogy of Morgalla, Diary of a Lonely Demon, number 10. We're into the double digits now. It's getting serious. Well, so, as always, if this is the first Wrench Reads that you've watched, click the on-screen annotation appearing right now, and go back to the introduction, start there. And also, as always, the link to the Morgalla the link to the Morgalla book that I'm going to be reading today is in the description box below. As, of course, is any link that I'm going to actually be using in this video. And I believe I'm only going to need one. The introduction today is going to be a little bit different. Instead of going through something I talk about in research, something I talk about where John himself did something that I could rant about. This time, I'm going to do something just a little bit different. Specifically, I'd like to point out an instance where, if you guys are interested, you can actually come to either read my writing or you could write something in setting with me. In the description box is a link to the Chaos Revamped. It is a universal blend setting that is a play-by-post RP. The big thing here is any universe that you want, you can play, you can have a character from. Within reason, of course. I mean, something like, don't bring in like an omnipotent character. That would break the game. But for instance, we have video games, music, video games, movies. One of the characters I can think of is Ezio Auditore di Firenze from Assassin's Creed 2, and Selena Kyle. There's a fantastic bit of discussion between those two characters. Some great character development between the two of them, too. And, well, my character, and you're not even limited to characters such as canonical characters, like from different settings. You can even make your own. You can make your own OC. That's what I've done. I've got a couple of characters that I'm playing, but I'm running my own OC named Indiana Riley Templeton. The setting's really cool. There's all kinds of cool stuff going on. If you're interested, have a look. If you want to write with me, if you want to write with us, feel free to join up. The only thing it'll take is your time. And in my opinion, this kind of writing is well worth your time. So, and before I get started into my reading today, this is actually the longest I'm actually going to have spent on a Wrench Reads ever. The reason for it being the compression of this video and the program I used apparently just didn't take. So I'm essentially having to run this through twice. I think I figured out what was wrong. But instead of a half an hour today of just off-the-cuff reading, I'm doing a full hour of off-the-cuff reading. That's why it's a little later. But today, we are going to finish Chapter 3, and I'm going to go through a few things that really piss me off about John's writing, kind of in general. And I'm going to set the tone for how some of these characters, specifically the primary protagonist and the primary antagonist, are going to be relating and acting around each other throughout essentially the rest of the book. So, without further ado, let's get started. Yeah. So, again, if you folks, if I haven't said it before, or you haven't heard it before, thanks for stopping by. If you like what I do, rate, comment, subscribe. I'm doing this for you guys. And John. Suffice it to say. So, alright, let's get going. Hopefully my phone will survive the half an hour or so of reading. Or ish. Okay, and the start of this first paragraph is really John's writing in a nutshell. There's a couple of fantastic points where I can really say that this is John's writing in a nutshell. If you ever wanted just a snippet, the first sentence of this paragraph is really John's writing, everybody. So, Jasper walked through a crowded gym. Many large bodybuilder-like men and attractive women were working out there. He wore shorts and a t-shirt that he usually wore to work out. Oh, I'm sorry. He wore shorts and a t-shirt, what he usually wore to work out. So much of what had happened that day was on his mind that he almost bumped into one woman. "Excuse me," he said, sounding apologetic, but then realized the woman was Missy Ryder. She ignored him and walked another way up to her boyfriend Steve. He was a large, incredibly muscular man. They gave each other a kiss, and Steve put his hands on Missy's rear. Okay, sorry about that. She knew that sort of thing annoyed Jasper greatly. Jasper tried to shrug it off as he continued to the front desk. His friend Megan was there, sitting behind the large computer. She was working on the computer, looking at the screen. Megan was a petite woman, with the physique of a personal trainer. Before Jasper met Megan Miller, he was considered a toothpick. No muscle on him whatsoever. She saw hidden potential, the same potential that had been trying to break through Jasper's negative attitude. Through her special combination of tough love and brutal honesty, she thought she could make him stand up and fight for himself. As Jasper stepped up, she saw him out of the corner of her eye. Her hand ran through her long black hair as she started. Wow, sorry about that, guys. I'm just a bit distracted. Her hand ran through her long black hair as she stared at the screen. She continued to work on the computer as she talked to him. 25 looks to be too light for you, she advised. Go to 30. I don't know. My arms have been feeling like jelly lately, thanks to you, Jasper replied. Megan finished her work and looked at Jasper. If you want to get big, you gotta lift heavy. She smiled, but Jasper merely rolled his eyes. Something else bugging you? Got some bad news from my journalism teacher. Is that the underworked, overpaid teacher? All my teachers are, Jasper noted, his cynical attitude shining through. Anyway, what did he say? I should change my major. Ouch. Megan's look turned to one of pain, feeling sympathy for him. Translation, you suck. An attractive young woman walked up to the counter and signed in, standing right next to Jasper. He took a step to the side, not wanting to stand next to her. He looked at her in a shy way and managed to smile. You know, Megan went on, before you started dating Mariette, I would have said that you needed 20 or so pounds more muscle, and a better car, and a better job, and your point? Confidence, Megan said with a smile. I mean, yeah, you got the girl, Jazz, but now you just need the confidence to keep her. I think I might be better off with a sports car. Sports car? Never mind. Jasper finished his workout and changed back into street clothes. As he walked out of the gym, a backpack over one shoulder, he held the door open for two women walking in. They continued their conversation, not noticing Jasper at all, or his kind gesture. You're welcome, he said under his breath. While walking to his car, Jasper searched for his keys. He stepped up to his car just as he located his keys and promptly dropped them. He reached down to pick them up. When he stood up, he suddenly felt a presence behind him. Jasper spun around quickly in surprise. For all he knew, there was someone who was going to mug him. He saw three men standing there, one of them Missy Ryder's boyfriend, Steve. He was the biggest and most muscular of the three. The other two were standing on either side of him. Jasper relaxed when he saw the three familiar faces, expecting instead to find a stranger. Hi, Jasper said. Steve stood with his large arms folded. He did not look happy. Stay away from my girlfriend, Steve said, with a sneer on his face. Missy? Jasper asked, a bit confused. Steve slowly walked up and looked down at him in an intimidating way. He outweighed Jasper by 100 pounds easily, and there would be no contest if a fight broke out. Look at her again and I'll break your face, Steve said. This time he pounded his fist into his palm for emphasis. Steve held up his fist and clenched it, cracking his knuckles. Jasper tried to back up a bit, but his car was behind him, and Steve's friends were on either side. There was nowhere to run, and Jasper looked intimidated. I'll break you in half, you geek. Steve walked away, confident that he had done something important. His friends, who acted more like minions, followed, giving Jasper a smug look. As they walked away, Jasper could not help but notice Missy Ryder standing next to Steve's expensive sports car. She smugly looked at Jasper and then kissed her boyfriend passionately. Jasper breathed a sigh of both relief and frustration at what had just happened. He turned around, looking at his old, beat-up car. His day was certainly not going well. And that's the end of the chapter. The next chapter, chapter 4, starts is called A Normal Night at Shenanigans. But you might have actually saw me emphasize a few different things with my, my facial expressions of that section that really kind of irked me. And of course, we'll just go through them one at a time and really just give them the once over. So the first thing was, I kind of led into it with the first sentence. And I'll read it again. I think I'll also post a transcription in the annotations. Jasper walked through the crowded gym. This is... It's ridiculous, and it shows there's not an editor in sight. John's writing, everybody. I know what he was trying to do here. It's obvious from this sentence. It looks like he started by having it be Jasper walked through a crowded gym, period. But when he realized that this is something that in the same section it says that he's been here before, talking about Megan, he changed it. Jasper walked through the crowded gym, period. But he forgot to delete the A. And keep in mind, this is not the first draft or the first publishing of this book. This has been edited once or twice, and still, the first sentence of a new section is still completely wrong. I remember when I first read this, I actually had to put the book down, and I was reading it just before I was going to bed. I put the book down for the night. That was enough because of just how bad that one sentence was. I mean, it's something so simple that any editor would see that first time through and say, hey, change this. So it shows to me that John doesn't have an editor here. The second sentence of that paragraph shows either John's misconception when it comes to gyms or Jasper's characterization of gyms as very black and white. Many large bodybuilder-like men and attractive women were working out there. If any one of you, my watchers, have been to the gym, I mean, I can say from experience, but if you don't have the experience, nothing to compare it to. If you've been to the gym, especially on different times of different days, you'll know that different groups work out at different times. Certain different types of athletes will work out later or earlier. And these groups will essentially stay with their own clique. Most people who work out on cardio will be in the same area. The same with people who prefer to lift heavy. They'll work out in one room of the gym. Or the people who are focusing on lightweight lifting will work out all in the same place. So this either shows that John doesn't understand the gym that he's talking about, at least in this case, or he's simplifying it to an incredible level where it really doesn't make sense. Or the entire town of Springdale all the women are attractive and all the men are large bodybuilders, or the ones who go to the gym. I mean, even it's a little rarer to see folks who are less physically, quote-unquote, attractive or less physically inclined to work out, but that's the best way to start. The best way to get yourself physically fit, physically active, is to start somewhere. And you'll see a novice, like me, in the gym from time to time. And something going on outside. Huh. But suffice it to say, John has simplified this to a level where it's silly. So, next. There's two sentences that I want to go through for the next point that I want to make. And it really shows how I think both John and Jasper really view how they should treat people. First off is the sentence right after that, the paragraph that I was just talking about, is where, "Excuse me," he said, sounding apologetic, but then realized the woman was Missy Ryder. For someone like me, I will say I don't have a lot of quote-unquote enemies, but even the people that I don't get along with very well, I'll still hold the door open for them, just because I'm a courteous kind of guy. I hold the door open for people. Why? Because I can. And then later on in the section, this is after Jasper's finished working, which there's no detail of what he actually did. As he walked out of the gym, a backpack over one shoulder, he held the door open for two women walking in. They continued their conversation, not noticing Jasper at all or his kind gesture. "You're welcome," he said under his breath. This shows to me that Jasper, or by extension John, expects to be entitled essentially to people giving him or showing them thanks when he does something like that, rather than just doing it because he can or because he wants to be nice. He expects the thanks from the girls as they walk in. This shows me just how much of a nice guy John actually is. It shows to me, John Jasper, shows me how much of a nice guy John Jasper actually is, because he's expecting them to be like, "Oh, thank you, stranger. Would you like to have sex with me?" Or something like that. Of course, I'm simplifying it fairly extensively, and I might be reading into this more than I should. But the point is, when someone holds the door open for you, they're doing it because they're being courteous. They're not doing it, in my experience, because they expect something, in this case, a thank you, in return. So, lesson to you guys. Be nice. Hold the door open for people because you can. Let's see. Then we meet Megan, the only decent or good female character in this book. It's the only female character actually portrayed in a positive light. She's a petite woman with a physique of a personal trainer. She starts talking to Jasper about his day. Something else bugging you. Got some bad news from my journalism teacher. Is that the overworked I'm sorry. I messed this up in the last take as well. Is that the underworked, overpaid teacher? All my teachers are. And I think this says something about Jasper. And it says something that really kind of it's not the word. Proof is not the word, but it supports something I said in the last video, in number 9. All my teachers are. Really? That means, that implies, at least to me, that Jasper's having similar problems with all of his teachers. And if Jasper's having similar problems, it's not the teacher's fault. It's the fault of Jasper. It's the fault of the student. If you're having a problem that's essentially universal, stop looking at all of these different people and blaming them. Let's do a little bit of introspection. Try to figure out what's going on with you. And in this case, I think Jasper's more or less admitting that it's his own damn fault. And plus this kind of says that John thinks, or Jasper thinks, it could imply that he thinks all teachers are overworked and underpaid, but that's stretching it. I don't think that would really make sense. But it really does say something about Jasper as a student. He's not just a bad student, according to this. He's awful. And then later on, this is said it's said in sympathy, but it's not said it's not said ironically, it's not said sarcastically. Translation: you suck. That's coming from Megan. So I think, and this is John's writing again, because rather than actually giving it some characteristic where, okay, Megan likes to have a sense of humor, she's a bit ironic, she likes to poke fun, this is set, because there's no context to it, this single line, translation, : you suck. It's said because there's no depth to it, because John hasn't built any depth around it. This entire thing is said literally. Translation, you suck. Said by Megan, and that kind of, it supports my previous statements about Jasper being not a great student. So, go figure. Talks about confidence, where it's really rambling. There's no real meaning behind Megan talking to Jasper about confidence. There's no... It's like one of my rambles. That it really is kind of aimless. She doesn't even... Let's see. Confidence. I mean, yeah, you got the girl, but now you need the confidence to keep her. Except the fact that Jasper has never held a girl longer than a few dates. That's hardly even getting the girl. So it's more than just confidence that Jasper is lacking. He's lacking, just basic talking to women skills. Talked about that. Okay, and the final part kind of all is blended into the big thing that I really wanted to talk about in this shortish read. And it really kind of sets and as I said, it sets the tone for the dialogue between both Jasper and and not even just Jasper, Morgalla, and all of the antagonists in this book. What I'm talking about is the scene with Steve. And I'll summarize just very briefly. Jasper leaves the gym. Jasper goes out to the car, drops his keys, bends down, picks them up, turns around. Steve is standing there. This big, tall, imposing guy with two minions, one on each side. We don't know who these guys are. These are not demons. These are humans. These are guys that have, we assume, jobs, lives, friends, families, and all of that. But just to make Steve look like look like a demon, John has relegated these characters to essentially support for what becomes this incredible... something that becomes incredibly juvenile. And that is the real topic here. This entire section where Steve comes up and says, "Don't look at my girlfriend again or I'll break your face." That doesn't strike me as an adult person, as an adult who's not, drunk, going up to somebody else and saying that. He calls Jasper a geek too. This doesn't strike me as teen banter. It doesn't strike me as college student banter. It doesn't strike me as adults. This strikes me, the reader, as high school banter. And John has been quoted as writing this book for adults, an older audience. But this entire conversation, this entire dialogue, is juvenile at best. It's something that I would expect from a bully story, where the primary character is being bullied, therefore he gets powers. Oh wait, that's this story. Jasper is being bullied by Steve and Missy for no reason, and we'll get more into who's the people who are bullying Jasper here in the next section of the book. I think it's chapter 4, but the point is, it's essentially a character being bullied, getting superpowers, and then sticking it to the bullies. I've essentially just laid out the rest of the book, and it shows that there's no plot development. There's no real characteristic of this book that really makes it a decent adult novel, especially in this section of the plot when you're talking about Jasper. So yeah, that's the big rant, is essentially that John has written this section of the book, and essentially all oncoming dialogue between Jasper and the antagonists, including, well, I'll get to that in a second. He's essentially set this up to where Jasper and Morgalla are essentially dealing with high school bullies. And the thing is, there's a weird parallel between Jasper and Morgalla. The girl is petite, or the girl in the relationship is petite. In this case, for Jasper, it's Missy Ryder, but for Morgalla, it's Delilah. Delilah's boyfriend, or whatever you want to call him, is this hulking monster of muscle who's dumb as a doorknob. And Steve, this guy who has a sports car, we don't know what he does for a living. We don't know what he does as, like, when he's not picking on Jasper, is also as dumb as a bag of hammers. It's ridiculous, and it doesn't really make it, especially when I first read this, it doesn't make me appreciative of what John's doing here, specifically because it's so simplistic. There's no depth to the villains whatsoever. There's no depth to Delilah. There's no depth to Necrod. There's no depth to Missy, and there's no depth to Steve. So, yeah, long ramble. John's writing has no depth. Big surprise, right? But okay, I think I'm pretty much done. This one's a bit shorter than the other one, but I think I got to the points that I wanted to make a little quicker and easier. Let me double check. But yeah, look at her again, and I'll break your face. The dialogue here it's well, I've said it. It's juvenile. It's silly. It's stupid. It's not something you'd expect from a guy who's 40 years old writing a book. Pounded his fist into his palm for emphasis. I'll break you in half, you geek. It's high school drama, high school bullshit, in a supposedly adult novel where two adults are dealing with each other. And this is what I forgot. Jasper is a grown man. I usually work out at 7:30. Jasper owns his own car. If Jasper knew that this was a hostile environment with Missy and Steve, who would do this kind of bullshit, he would take to his car, he would leave for an hour, go get a bite to eat, go work on some homework at the library, turn around, come back to the freaking gym when this hostile environment wasn't actually a thing. I mean, Jasper, and actually, it really shows to me how he's trying to approach this, and in something that Megan said. Jasper's not trying to approach this in an intelligent way. The only reason that when I was young I was bullied is because I was in classes with these bullies, and I had to deal with them for 6 hours a day. But now that I'm older, when I know how to avoid bullies, because you know exactly where to find them, when to find them, what to look for, and it takes 2 seconds to just turn around, go do something else for a while, come back when they're not there, to avoid this stupid high school crap. Let's see. Yes. It was something she said about, I think it was in the Confidence. Suffice it to say, Jasper is trying to essentially fix his problems by bulking up, by essentially becoming another Steve. And instead of doing something, very simple that would take 2 seconds and a little bit of intellect. So, yeah. Okay, that the last section was a bit less structured than I would have hoped, but I think I'm done. Let's hope that the video compression software actually works this time. But until next time, folks, na zdorano, na zdrowie, peace.